Hello, Mr.Gobbo here. Welcome to my fourth battle report. This time I take on the opponent from my first battle report, 6 Nightmare 9 / Berghofer. This time we went for 2500 points using the 9th Age Beta 0.11.1 rule set, I think. Normally, when I'm playing on my home pitch, I usually design the battlefield so that neither side has an overly powerful advantage. This time I decided to follow the rulebook for random terrain deployment, and what a mess. I can't say I'm a fan of that particular terrain builder option. We rolled for deployment type and got diagonal deployment. I'm not too pleased because again, he has monsters, I have war machines, I want more time to shoot. And we got the secondary objective, breakthrough. My opponent chose which side to deploy on, and I chose that he had to deploy first. In regards to our armies, you can now see our full lists. As always, feel free to pause the video to get more time to read the small details. My opponent's list looks really strong. 2 big combat blocks, Wildhorns and Longhorns, supported by monsters, soothsayers, and 2 resilient combat characters, with a chariot and some other things. My opponent was kind enough to send me his list, so I just took a screenshot of it. So if there are any mistakes or something, I have nothing to do with it. I promise. My list basically looks like the list I used in Battle Report 3, with some minor tweaks. This time I dropped the Cave Goblins altogether and opted for some common Gobbo commandos, fully equipped with short bows, light armor and shields. I also wanted to try out the Shady Gits, and I have a comment or two about them at the end of the video. I also found room for 1 Gargantula with the web launcher / catapult thing, even though I dislike using it because it hasn't been painted yet. As for spells, my Feral Orc Big Shaman chose the Path of the Big Green Gods, getting the signature spell and spells number 3 and 4. I'm not too pleased as I plan to play a semi-stationary list, so I hope to get either Bashing Fists or the Big Stump. Preferably both, but it's okay. My common Gobbo Shaman got the signature spell Shadow Miasma and spell number 4 and 5. Again, combining Shadow Miasma with Devouring Darkness is potentially devastating. As the game went on, I later realized I could synergize it with my Gargantula Web Launcher too. I will definitely try out that combo one day. As always, here is my battle plan. Number 1, castle up a bit. I have to guard my flanks / war machines against ambushers. Number 2, shoot 'em up good with my war machines. 3, buff up my lads, get the war going. 4, war! 5, victory! Let's get started. The Orcs and Goblins won the roll-off for getting the first turn. In the movement phase, the Gargantula Spider moves into the ruins. The common Goblin commandos move on top of the hill, so their line of sight is not blocked. I don't move my big combat blocks forward, because I want to thin his army out a little with my war machines before getting into close combat, as I currently have the shooting advantage. In the magic phase, I get off the boosted Shadow Miasma spell on his Longhorn character Bunker Horde, and they get -3 to their stats. In the shooting phase, the Gargantula Spider shoots the web launcher, kills 2 Wildhorns, and gives the entire Wildhorn unit -2 to initiative and movement. That's the kind of Goblin shenanigans I like. The Splatter misfires, rolls a 4, and cannot shoot in this turn or the next. Bummer! The Git launcher also misfires and rolls a 1. It cannot shoot for the rest of the game. Super bummer! Maybe I should have spent those 2 × 15 points for a bully for each of my war machines. Hindsight is 2020. I begin getting scared. I've lost so many games against this Beast Herds player, and many of them due to very poor rolls. Is this another one of those games? No close combat, and it's time for the Beast Herds turn 1. In the movement phase, how did I not take a picture of this? There's a picture of it in the Orcs and Goblins turn 2, but he gets in all 3 ambushing mongrels, and position 2 of them between my Splatter and Skewer. The last unit is positioned behind my Gargantula Spider. His centaurs move into the field. Yes, it's a field, okay? Are you blind or something? That's the most fieldy field I've ever seen. The rest of his army moves up. Somehow, still failed to take a picture of this. In the magic phase, his gnarled Soothsayer casts the 5d6 strength 1 hit spell and gives the Gargantula 2 wounds. He also gives the Gortach, whatever it's called, a 5-up regen. In the shooting phase, the centaurs shoot and kill 1 wolf rider. We later found out that they are unable to shoot if they have marched. which they did this turn, so he's just sleeping. And no close combat yet. It is time for the Orcs and Goblins turn 2.
Alright lads, change of plans. The shooty things don't work proper. Get moving and bash some heads.
My left wolf chariot charges the closest unit of mongrel raiders, hoping to break them and make the others flee off the table. It should work. I begin moving my army, seeing that my war machines have let me down. In the magic phase, I forget to declare which version of the Shadow Miasma spell I cast on the Gortak. I wanted the boosted version, so I only give it -1 to movement. But I use this opportunity to magically move my Gobbo Shaman away from the soon-to-be-doomed Goblin unit. In the shooting phase, the Gargantula shoots at the Wild Horn herd again, giving them -2 to movement and initiative again. Nice! In the close combat phase, my left wolf chariot rolls a 1 with impact hits, but wins combat and runs down 1 mongrel raider unit, and the other unit flees off the table. Good job. It is time for the beast herd's turn 2. In the movement phase, finally, a good picture, so you now have an idea of how things are looking on the table. My opponent declares a charge on my common Gobbos with the Gortak. I'm very happy I gave them the 5-point magic banner that makes them automatically pass terror tests and become immune to the effects of fear. They are still somewhat cowards with leadership 6 though. The rest of his army moves up. In the magic phase, he tries to get 2 spells off. I scroll the first and use all my dispel dice in the second, successfully dispelling it. Why use my scroll so early in the game? I don't want him to have any buffs on his units or hexes on my units in my next phase. I want to charge and beat him up good. No notable shooting, and in the close combat phase his Gortak kills 3 Gobbos with impact hits and another 7 from his 7 attacks. I inflict 2 wounds on him, however, and stick. It's time for the Orcs and Goblins turn 3.
Wah!
I declare mighty Wah with my Iron Orc Warlord, Drumbag Skullcracker. The Gargantula and Feral Orc and Bashers both charged the Wildhorn herd. To be able to get off the Wah, I had to charge something with my Iron Orcs. The Gortak was narrowly outside of my line of sight, so there was only one real option left, the Longhorn Horde. I know this is dangerous, but I hope to take some of them with me to the grave. My right wolf chariot charges the Gortak, hoping to inflict some wounds through impact hits. Both units in my combo charge make it. Nice! My Iron Orcs also get lucky with Swift Stride and make it. My wolf chariot also makes it. My left wolf chariot moves in to intercept his last mongrel raider unit. In the magic phase, I get off the reroll to hit spell on my Feral Orcs, and use the law attribute to allow my Iron Orcs to reroll 1s to wound. In the shooting phase, my Skewer kills 1 Wildhorn from the Soothsayer bunker. Wow, it's earned its points. Not really. My Splatter finally gets to fire again, hitting the Beast Giant, inflicting 2 wounds. In the close combat phase, in the Wildhorn herd combat, he inflicts 2 wounds on my Feral Orc Big Shaman and kills 2 Feral Orcs. However, I kill enough to auto-break them, and they are overrun by my Gargantula and Swift Stride Ferals. My Iron Orcs with Devastating Charge lost combat by quite a bit. I forgot to reroll 1s to wound. I killed 8 plus 2 wounds on his general, and he killed 14. And my Iron Orcs run away. They're lucky enough to roll high and narrowly get away, even though my opponent has the Swift Stride banner. They flee through my Gobbo Shaman, who then fails his leadership test, and he also runs away. My Wolf Chariot rolls a 1 on impact hits, flops, dies. My Gobbos stick, however. It is time for the Beast Herd's turn 3. Here's a picture so you can see what's going on the battlefield. In the movement phase, he charges my Iron Orcs with the Longhorns. My Iron Orcs flee and run through my Shaman, saving their own skin for another turn at the Shaman's expense. My opponent shows great fair play and hits my Wolf Riders. He then moves his other units around a bit. Sorry, no photo. In the magic phase, I think he gets off the regen spell on his Longhorns and removes a wound from his general. In the shooting phase, there's no notable shooting. In the close combat phase, my Gobbos, no longer able to use my general's leadership, break from combat but get away. My opponent rolls a double 1. My Wolf Riders are naturally destroyed and he overruns into my Goblin Shaman, slaying him, but saving my Iron Orcs. It is a sacrifice that I am willing to make. It is time for the Orcs and Goblins turn 4. As you can see, it's not looking too good for me. My right flank is practically gone, and my army is slowly disintegrating. In the movement phase, my general rallies, however, and on my opponent's excellent suggestion, I reform to maximize the amount of attacks I get to make before being killed by his longhorns. It's all about taking as many longhorns with me to the grave as possible. My common gobbos are also brave enough to rally. My feral orcs perform a swift reform and move towards his other units. My gargantula, unable to perform a swift reform, just reforms and faces the ugly pig. In the magic phase, I got off to a great start. 11 power dice. Here, I wanted to move my feral orcs with a green hand a lot closer to the enemy's longhorns, so I could beat them up, and maybe then buffing up my iron orcs a bit as to inflict maximum damage on the longhorns, but I failed to roll 9 with 4 dice. Magic phase over. In the shooting phase, my splatter doesn't hit anything and my skewer gets the same idea. In the close combat phase, there was no close combat at this time. And it's time for the beast herds, turn 4. In the movement phase, my opponent begins Operation Mop Up the Orcs, and charges my splatter with his right ugly pig. The Gortak charges the Gobbos again, but surprisingly the Gobbos passed their leadership 5 terror tests despite having lost their banner. The Longhorns and characters charge my Iron Orcs. The Beast Giant charges my chariot, situated behind my Iron Orcs. The 3 mongrels charge the skewer. All charges succeed, and here I notice something. Because I was so close to my opponent, he couldn't wheel to maximize contact, so I ended up wasting 3 Iron Orcs on the left flank of my unit. Great. Always measure and think things through. In the magic phase, I think he got off the 5-up regen spell on his longhorns again, healing his general for the last wound, and there was no notable shooting in the shooting phase. In the close combat phase, the mongrel raiders kill 2 of my gobbos before they get to strike, but my remaining gobbo sticks. The ugly pig naturally kills my splatter and passes its leadership test to reform facing my broken git launcher. The common goblins get lucky and actually win combat, only 1 wound left on the big thing. My chariot gets lucky, it survives, passing its break test and reforms to face the giant head on, so my wolves get to strike. My remaining Iron Orcs are slaughtered. I think I only killed 2 or 3 of his. Drumbag Skullcracker bravely runs for his life and gets away. My opponent is stuck behind his giant and my chariot. Nice. It is time for the Orcs and Goblins turn 5. We were in a rush to finish the game, so I apologize if I forgot to take pictures of some game events, mainly all from my own movement phase. But in the movement phase, I charged the ugly pig on the left side with my gargantula. It runs away, but I catch it. I was hoping it would stick so I could get a nice long overrun with my gargantula. The Drumbag, he rallies and turns to face the longhorns. My ferals reform and try to move closer to the longhorns, again hoping for some teleporting magic to happen this time. But in the magic phase, I try to cast the same teleport spell, and again I fail to roll 9 with 4 dice, and my magic phase is over. And there was no shooting in the shooting phase since my gargantula made a charge move this turn. Hooray! Pictures! In the close combat phase, my Shady Git kills the Gortak before it gets to strike. Finally, I reform to face the rear of his soothsayer bunker, I was about to say shaman. My chariot is slain by the beast giant, but not before my 2 wolves inflict 2 wounds in the big monster. My last skewer crewman dies. And that's the end of my turn. And we're getting closer to the end of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the beast herds turn 5. In the movement phase, my opponent charges my dysfunctional git launcher with his remaining pig, and naturally succeeds. He then moves his army closer to my feral orcs, eager to finish me off. In the magic phase, I think he got off the 5-up regen spell again on the longhorns, healing a wound on the giant. And in the shooting phase, there was no notable shooting. In the close combat phase, the pig again kills a war machine and passes its leadership test to not overrun, and it gets ready for a nasty recharge on my common goblins. And now it's time for the Orcs and Goblins turn 6.
Charge!
In the movement phase, my feral orcs go for the beast giant. I hope the mammoth stabber is going to help me out here, dealing D3 wounds against large targets. Drumbag and the gargantula charge the longhorns. My common gobbos try to hide behind a hill like the small cowards they are. In the magic phase, I get off the 5-up ward save spell on my feral orcs, and they get to reroll 1s to wound. And there was no notable shooting in the shooting phase, unfortunately. In the close combat phase, the mammoth stabber inflicts 3 wounds on the beast giant, killing it, allowing for a perfect overrun into the next combat, all according to plan. If the Longhorns don't die to this, then I don't know what could kill them. With all of my feral orcs attacks hitting on a 4-up, I only hit with 2. I end up killing only 3 and inflict 1 wound on his BSB, who was with Drumbag in a challenge, and it is a draw. Thus, my ferals lose their Born to Fight plus 1 strength. Because we were in a hurry, I forgot all of my BSB's attacks with a great weapon. I forgot the champion from my feral orc unit, and I forgot the 8 attacks from my Orcs Gobbos on the Gargantula. But still, I rolled a 1 for stomps 2. It's just one of those games, isn't it? I should at least have 1 combat. This is it, the last turn of the game. The beast herd's turn 6. In the movement phase, my opponent countered charges me with his Soothsayer Bunker in the flank of my feral orcs. The chariot charges the rear of my ferals, and the ugly pig charges the rear of my gobbos. Only the chariot doesn't make it, lucky for me. In the magic phase, my opponent gets a really good phase, and he gives his longhorns plus 1 strength and toughness, and gives them a 5-up region too. And there was no shooting in the shooting phase. In the close combat phase, the ugly pig wins combat against my common goblins, and as they run away, they are all eaten or trampled or whatever happened. He then kills some of my feral orcs, his general kills the Gargantula, and I forget to reroll 1s to wound with my feral orcs. Without my Born to Fight, I lose combat by 1, but both my ferals and Drumbag Skullcracker stick. The end. A major victory for my opponent, just about 1000 points, after adding the bonus for the secondary objective. At least Drumbag Skullcracker survived this time. A well-deserved victory to my opponent, well played by him. Now, rant time. Number 1, I made so many mistakes, especially not choosing the right targets for close combat attacks. I know perfectly well that you always have to go for combat res, which means hitting the peons, not the kings. I still got greedy twice and was punished. It cost me the game losing Born to Fight. I also forgot my own buffs and outright forgot to roll with 12 attacks or so. No, it was 16. And drew combat because of that. My opponent also played very well, making only a few mistakes. Reforming his Wildhorn herd to horde formation was probably the biggest one. Number 2. I feel that my war machines let me down just a wee bit. Maybe I've been too lucky in my previous 3 games, so maybe it's just karma hitting me here. Pink Taco would agree. The lack of functional war machines really changed my game plan. I did what any self-respecting orc would do. I went on the offensive with mixed success. Number 3A. What's up with Shady Gits? They feel off to me. So, they're goblin assassins, right? Taking Shady Gits doesn't work too well when you equip your common gobbo boss with short bows, since they have to be revealed or placed during deployment. No surprise deployment of Shady Gits. If you move, you only have about 7 shots left. That is, if you don't have any other characters. Okay, it looks weird. Number 3B. So, Shady Gits look weird in a boss. Okay? But what about common goblin hordes? Which is probably one of the best formations with Greentide Gobbos and unruly 3d6 cold-blooded leadership roles. Since you have to deploy them at the start of the game, the opponent gets to maximize contact where he wants to, if you're charged. This means you need to spread out your Shady Gits, hoping that at least one of them will get to strike against your opponent for that crucial first round of combat bonus they get. Since you can't make way with them, because they're not the troop type character, or even pseudo-character type champion. No make way, no efficiency. And the last one, number 3C. This means that you can't challenge with them or accept challenges. That feels a bit weird when you think about them as being assassins, doesn't it? They just don't feel finished or well thought out. Come on, let them at least be deployed during the first round of combat so they at least get to choose their targets, if not charged in the flank or rear. That would be okay. Okay, I'm done. If you have any feedback, tactical, corrections, comments, whatever, please leave a comment on my video and I will reply as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed this battle report. I have a feeling that Mr.Gobbo is itching to get out and see some action instead of Drumbag Skullcracker, and I may have a game plan for tomorrow. I'll see you in the next battle report. I should go. Mr. Gobbo out.